welcome to the latest fortnightly roundup of news and polls from Ipsos MORI. And as we start to lift restrictions across Britain and the shops are open, our latest findings from the REACT study that we run, checking the prevalence of the virus among people with and without symptoms that we do with Imperial College London, it shows that infections have fallen by 60% since January, which is a really positive sign. The R rate is now sort of flatlining at a much lower level, but it's still about 1, and it remains to be seen what happens next. Overall, globally, the average is that in most countries, 6 out of 10 people now expect life to return to something like normal within the next year. But there are one person in 10 who think it will take more than 3 years, and another 1 in 10 who think it will never happen. And it's really fascinating to compare different countries. The French, our near neighbours, are far more pessimistic than the British, partly perhaps reflecting the prevalence of the disease there and slow vaccine rollout. But interestingly, the Brazilians, perhaps with their classic jeitinho, with a death rate of 3,000 or 4,000 a day, are about as optimistic as the British that things will soon go back to normal. So it just shows that differences between countries often have a lot to do with the culture of that country and not so much always as what's actually going on there. Overall, though, nearly half of people globally say that their mental health has suffered during the pandemic, and so the vaccine rollout programs, are the biggest global challenge, or one of the biggest global challenges of 2021, but also dealing with the aftermath and the scars left by the pandemic. In terms of the vaccine rollout in Britain, we found that willingness to take the vaccine has increased among all groups. We've only got 6 people in 100 now who say they won't take it, and that's down from 14% back in December. So that's a really positive shift. And even more encouraging, I think, is that the proportion of ethnic minority Britons who say they won't take it has fallen from just under a quarter at 22% down to 6%. So that big difference that we were seeing in ethnicity in terms of propensity to take a vaccine seems to have diminished very dramatically, which is, again, very good news in terms of achieving coverage. Because of the success of the vaccine rollout, we've seen a sharp rise in optimism about the way in which Britain is headed. And overall, we've now got more people, for the first time in a long time, saying that things in Britain are heading in the right direction rather than the wrong direction, which is pretty unusual. And I think that just shows the dramatic success of the vaccine and the decline in the death rate. Overall, in politics, it's also we celebrate a year of Keir Starmer as leader of the Labour Party, and he's still got a whole load of work to do. He's got nearly 4 in 10 Britons who are unfavourable to him, and only a quarter who are favourable. So he's still got a lot of people who are sitting on the fence, but the proportion who are unfavourable is gradually rising. And so that is a lookout. It's difficult for him with the air being sucked out of the room by the vaccine rollout and the pandemic, but he has some big challenges. He hasn't managed to really move opinions about the Labour Party itself, which is pretty much unchanged since Jeremy Corbyn was leader. And when he goes head to head against Boris Johnson, Johnson is a long way ahead in terms of being good in a crisis, being a strong leader, or indeed putting the needs of the country first. So Keir Starmer having real problems cutting through. Overall, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, remains the most popular politician in Britain this month, and that's again perhaps reflecting him as the man with the money, but his image seems to be unsullied by anything that he's going through in the news, and he's as popular or even on net scores more popular than the Prime Minister and indeed Matt Hancock. But both of those men have more people who are favourable to them than Keir Starmer. When we come to Brexit this month, which we haven't heard quite as much about in the news, you can see this very dramatic analysis where we can see that the public are pretty pessimistic about its impact on transport and haulage, and given the news on delays at Dover, etc., perhaps not a surprise, but also agriculture, the automotive industry and manufacturing. Perhaps more positively, things like professional services, which are a large part of the UK economy, the public's more sort of neutral about what its effects are, positive and negative outputs and impacts being sort of balanced out. But public's still pretty negative overall about the impact of Brexit on the economy. But this doesn't mean that public opinion has swung in favour of rejoining the EU. Opinion's pretty much split over whether we should rejoin in the next decade. And in terms of which countries and parts of the world matter most to the UK, we can see that the proportion mentioning Europe is the lowest it's been for some time, and more people now starting to mention the Commonwealth, or or indeed just saying they don't know, which perhaps just reflects the complexity of our international trading arrangements. Overall, in Scotland, campaigning is continuing in the Scottish elections, and we've got a strong lead for the SNP. The independence issue is a key issue for Scottish voters, so it's going to all be about the idea of an independence referendum. All of the updates will be regularly on our website as we approach that crucial election in terms of potentially the future of the UK, so do have a look at that. Edinburgh team working hard there. And generally, if you want more on COVID or anything else, please do go for our website, bookmark that, and I will be back in touch in another 2 weeks. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.